Visionary mode has been added to Imaginarium Theater, and we've had the game mode around for quite a number of weeks by now. Previously, when the game mode had just first come out, I made a video airing all my grievances with the game mode. So today, I thought it would be fun to take a look at theater the way it is now, and discuss what things about theater have changed for the better and for the worse. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. First, I'm gonna focus on all of the stages outside of Visionary mode. The core gameplay of theater in the earlier stages feels pretty much the same in my experience. You select a whole lot of characters corresponding to that season's particular element structure, and then go ham trying to clear the different challenge stages that are thrown at you. I think one thing I should say is that team building isn't as bad as I said it was before, especially because we're forced into using more characters now, which I'll touch on a little later. You can still end up with nonsensical teams, but if you plan ahead of time and save your good characters for later, then that helps you out. I typically try to use up all my worst characters in the earlier stages, so that I'm left with more competent teams by the latter half of the theater run. Plus, when you open up a round of theater, you'll always be guaranteed at least one competent team to begin with that can be formed out of trial characters. You can summon new party members pretty frequently if you get the flowers, which are pretty common to get, and you'll probably end up with a lot by the end of your run if you're starring all the stages. Speaking of which, I've heard some confusion about stars going on down below in my comment section. The stars don't dictate whether you clear or not. Theater's only fully clear requirement is to beat all of the stages within the time limit, or after meeting the primary objective of a stage. The stars just provide you with more flowers to get more characters, and also to get more boons, which are essentially special buffs tied to that particular season's elemental structure. Collecting a good amount of these makes your runs a lot easier on you, and it's good to pick up some to make the later visionary stages a little easier. The early stages are still quite easy, but I can at least say that if you budget your characters out and try to use up the less useful or less well-built ones first, then the battles might feel a little more fairly matched. Instead of using your strongest characters up front to cheese the content, then being left with your weakest picks by the end. I'd not really say there were any major improvements to the earlier parts of the game mode. It's pretty much the same as before, except since I'm more experienced with theater now, I know how to better handle budgeting out my best units to form proper teams throughout the challenges. Or at least, something as close to a synergistic team as possible. Yet that brings me on to something interesting that the introduction of Visionary mode brought to Imaginarium Theater. I'm gonna warn you that the following section is gonna have a lot of complaining, but I will have lots of good things to say in the section afterwards. Don't assume that I think theater is irredeemable because of the following stuff that I'm about to say. I will say good things about it later this video. I'm just pointing out the flaws of this game mode that still remain. You are more than welcome to debate the points I make down below in the comment section. Visionary mode now asks us to add even more built and leveled characters to our theater roster. One of the biggest complaints about Imaginarium Theater before was that you needed way too many built characters in order to access the game mode, and Visionary mode has absolutely doubled down on that. There's no circumvention for this, you simply need more characters now. The thing is, game modes like this should only ask for a handful of characters, otherwise nobody is going to be able to play the thing. Or they should provide far more trial units, or even allow for more friend borrowing, as you can only borrow one friend unit at a time. But juice! Then somebody could just borrow a whole team of C6s. That is indeed a problem, but the easiest solution is to limit the amount of C6 characters that you can borrow from friends at a time to one. That way, if you personally pulled for any high investment units, you still get to use them without restrictions, and you aren't cheating the system with friend units too much. There just has to be some way that they can integrate this more accessibly. I can play theater fine, but no way, of course I can. I've been playing this game for almost 3 years, ever since 2.1. My account is almost gonna have its 3rd birthday soon, dude, and I'm a spender, so I naturally have access to more characters. How is a free-to-play player, somebody with much less resources and access to different characters, supposed to play this game mode? This was part of my original problem with theater. It doesn't really feel like it knows what target audience it's aiming for. If it's supposed to be more new player friendly compared to the increasingly more difficult Spiral Abyss, a new player is not going to be able to partake with their small roster until they've been playing for at least a couple of months. And even then, will they have spent enough resin to have enough level 70s to qualify for the game mode? Another valid criticism that I've heard about theater is that it sort of goes against what the Spiral Abyss as a game mode asks you to do. I'm not a game designer. I know nothing about it. You are free to correct me on stuff. Genshin as a game, historically, has always preferred the player heavily investing into 2 teams and perfecting them for the fastest clear possible. Theater rewards the complete opposite, spending resin inefficiently so that you can have enough units to qualify at baseline. This not only makes clearing the Abyss harder because you can't focus on perfecting 2 teams over a long period of time if you keep having to hop between domains and bosses to get all the materials that you need, but it's even weirder when you consider that Visionary mode has a pretty decent and acceptable difficulty level. So not only do you have to spend a buttload of resin to even qualify, but then on top of that, you have to have your units catch up to the standard of being able to clear more difficult content. This is all so expensive resin-wise, and you can't realistically prepare a whole new elemental roster every month to fight theater with if you've been playing for less than a year and do not wail for resources. You're asked to spend your resin in such a nonsensical way. This is why I say that you should focus on the Abyss first, theater second. The goalpost to clear the Abyss is far more clear and firm, and even if it keeps increasing in difficulty every patch, if you continuously invest in your favorite characters and teams that you really want to clear, then you will absolutely have the capability to clear with them. You also build up 2 reliable teams to clear any arduous content that you might encounter in general in the process. As you pull out more banners to clear Abyss and build them up for the Abyss, you will naturally have a greater roster to work with for theater that is actually built up. It's fine to put theater on the back burner and only clear the easier stages of it to yield a couple of the rewards in the meantime. I will say that the addition of Visionary mode is a step in the right direction. There's 2 directions they can take, either making it extremely new player accessible, or making it a much harder form of endgame content for players who have been building up their roster for years. Both of these paths, while they achieve different things, will still lead to theater finally having landed a proper target demographic. As of now, it's been made an even worse experience for casuals, but it did go in a more endgame mode direction. And finally, the last thing I want to add about the resin cost of all of this is that the rewards of theater are not relative to the amount of time and resin it takes both to participate in the game mode and to clear it fully. Don't get me wrong, theater isn't giving us chump change. We get a nice amount of primo gems from doing it, and it's definitely more than before when it was Abyss only. I think it's more than before by about 3 to 4 more pulls per month. You're free to correct me on that though. But considering how many characters you need and how much you need to build, call me crazy, but I feel like the rewards should be upped by about 1,000 primo gems per month. Something's gonna have to fund all of that horizontal investment after all. Alright, that's enough slander. I want to get onto the good parts of theater. I'm just gonna say it bluntly, I don't know whether this take is hot or not, I genuinely really had fun with Visionary mode. This specific boss fight right here actually took me a hot minute to clear. I couldn't cheese it with my C6 Farina, presumably because of the very high Hydro res on the enemy, and I had to actually pay attention to the boss mechanics in order to cook this big fella. He took me quite a few reattempts, and I actually enjoyed feeling engaged in this battle. If theater gets increasingly harder over time with more stages such as this, then I am absolutely all for it. Visionary mode didn't feel like a complete and utter pushover, and it felt worthwhile saving my best characters until the end so that I could battle the bosses more competently. I think this was a great step in the right direction if the goal of theater is to become more hardcore-centric. It definitely pleased me. It's nice because it feels like Hoyoverse genuinely listened to the complaints about theater's difficulty with this. I want more Visionary, more stages like this. Hoyoverse has already made it Huntley clear that they're willing to add more theater stages, and that they're willing to work more on making theater a better overall experience. So Hoyo, I encourage you to make more Visionary stages, or at least something close to this. I had to actually try many different teams to clear the last boss this season as well. If you're a super endgame individual who wasn't that interested in theater before due to the low difficulty, I recommend having a second look. It's actually pretty fun when you get to the final few parts of it. Good on Hoyo. I'd say this really improved my opinion of Imaginarium Theater. Listen, I know nobody cares about this, but I really, really do. Remember when Genshin only had a few emotes to pick from? I was flabbergasted and absolutely hyped when they started adding more. New Genshin emojis was so exciting for me, and quite frankly they still are, because I'm such a cool person that is absolutely not a nerd. Anyways, I love photo mode. I like using it for my videos, so these cool poses are really nice for idle shots. And they're nice for picture taking in general. I like that you can access special poses from previous seasons and that the newest ones are highlighted at the top. There's no FOMO of collecting them, which I heavily appreciate. My only gripe is that they don't give new poses to banner characters. They seem to pick a random lot. Come on man, give Kinich some epic pose when he comes out, yeah? I'm dying to get Farina and Venti poses out of this as well, but yeah, some of their choices for poses are a bit random, like who was asking for Arthritis Sino this patch? Other than that, Hoyo, I love these. Please keep making a lot more of them. Raiden's one is especially really cool. It fills in the empty slots that have always been available in the pose menu, which leads me to believe that Hoyo is gradually going to fill these out for every character over the years. In which case, give us purchasable facial expressions too, because some characters literally do not change their face at all when you use the default ones. I think I'm literally the only person who cares about this, but very cool, Hoyo, thank you. I haven't done every trail challenge since I don't have all these random fellas at Friendship 10. I was able to do Jean's trial since I already had Friendship 10. Gotta love Hoyo finally forcing me to level 90 my Jean after all these years of keeping her at 80 though. I actually have no gripes at the fact that it's friendship locked. Friendship farmers must be pumping their fists in the air right now since Hoyo threw them a bone. It adds more purpose to increasing your friendship level with your characters, while still keeping it as mostly a cosmetically based thing. Nobody's being forced to do it, but it still has neat benefits such as name cards, lore, teapot lines, and now these trails. Jean's trail stage is pretty fun. It does a good job of showcasing everything she can do, throwing away trash mobs, aura cleansing, and healing. I haven't played the other ones, so I can't comment on them all, but if they're all as well put together as Jean's, then I have no complaints. A friend has told me that the Kirara one was pretty good since it showcases their traveling capabilities by having you do a time trial that involves climbing walls, and it showcases the Dendro element's lack of need for crit as you are essentially forced to use Bloom to kill 2 enemies. And that friend tried to use a crit build and it didn't work for him. You can let me know down below in the comments about the rest of the trials and your opinions on them for everyone who's done them. It's a nice little extra that completionists can enjoy, something to work for over a long period of time. At least I like them. My only gripe is that I want more of them. Venti and Farina Wen Hoyo, or even Hu Tao of Ghosts, that'd be neat. I'd love to see what Hoyo could come up with for future characters. I think that Imaginarium Theater has improved depending on who you are. If you're a casual that hasn't built a bunch of random characters, it's arguably gotten worse. If you're somebody who's an endgame player with a bunch of different builds, then Visionary mode feels like a step in the right direction. I do hope Hoyoverse continues to flesh out Theater over time, because they've clearly shown interest in making it better, and so for that reason, I'm more than happy to continue providing both my own perspectives and my criticism. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Hopefully this video is able to give you an idea of whether Imaginarium Theater has improved or not ever since it was released. This has been Juice, signing out, and has this kid just never opened the theater door? Like, not even once. Or Lisa, even. How are we the first people to have discovered this place? Actual plot armor, dude.